Okay, you should all have a message now saying the meeting's being live streamed, so you're good to go, Graham.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Hi, Lorna. See you now.
Good evening.
Happy New Year.
And to you. I can hear you, but I'm starting to get all the pictures now. You're
buffering up. Yes.
I'll get there.
Okay. Yes, it says your bandwidth is low. I don't know what that means. I'm not technical. Anyway, shall we start the meeting, Alexa?
Yep, off you go.
Okay, right. We've got apologies for absence. I think you mentioned there's one person.
We have apologies from Colette Brown.
Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read those. I have. Seemed okay to me. Is everybody in agreement? Can we pass those, being a true record? Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest. I think we have the normal declaration from Alison. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else got a declaration to make? No, thank you. Public forum. I don't know. Sorry, Paul. Yeah.
Lorna.
Graham, can I just say
Lorna,
one of the
yes. Sorry, Lorna,
yes. So
yes.
one of the applications is for the Dabney School. So I just want to declare that my son goes to that school.
Nice. Absolutely fine. It's a very good school. So no problem, no problems there, Lorna. I don't think it's going to be an issue. Thank you. Public forum. Do we have anybody? Alexa? No,
I haven't received anything.
Right. Okay. Moving on to the plans. Now we've got quite a lot of plans actually, as you may have noticed, but most of them I've looked at them all, including the supplementary. I don't have an issue with many of them, but anyway, we'll run through them and see how we go. So anyway, the first one is PL oblique 21 oblique 4716 oblique FA, the Lodge, Woburn Green Lane, Holtzburg, single story side extension, roof extension with front and rear dormers to allow for additional loft accommodation. I have no issue with that unless anybody else has anything to. Alison.
Not saying that I have an issue or not with it, but, and it may just be me, but when I clicked on the ecology report, it just came up as a load of gobbledygook. So it may, if everyone else has got the same issue, it may be worth just flagging that up with Bucks.
Yes, actually, I likewise, Alison. I've been in bed actually, so I've looked at these and I assumed it was because I was rather a long way from my router, but you're quite right. There've been a lot of technical issues there. I would imagine Woburn Green Lane is on the edge of the green belt, isn't it? So I don't know what the issue is there, but we could ask as to whether indeed there is an ecology report that is substantive and what the details are. You're quite right.
The ecology report, did you say?
Yeah.
Yes. Have you got? Can you bring that up, Tracy? Yeah, that would be
just
great.
Going to do.
Yeah.
2 seconds. Get to the right screen. Ecology and trees checklist, is that the one?
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine now.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that looks all right. I don't think we need to worry about that. Sorry, if you agree, Alison.
Yeah, it didn't look like that when I looked at it before.
No.
It's the gremlins.
Yeah. No, I think we're okay with that, Tracy. Thank you. So moving on, PL oblique 21 oblique 4695 oblique FA, Surge Lodge, Nebra Gate, Beaconsfield, single story, rear swimming pool and gym extension with associated annex attached by enclosed link covered walkway.
Nice.
Paul, did you want to make a comment?
The comment was very nice.
It will indeed. I was about to say the same thing. They obviously don't want to get cold from
No,
having a.
no.
They're going into the house for a quick G&T. Yeah, I so far as the planning aspects of it are concerned, obviously we haven't had any objections, and
No.
I don't think there's any overlooking. It is a very significant, I have to say, swimming pool and gym extension, but I have no issue with it.
No, not at
Unless
all.
anybody else has.
No.
Okay, thank you. PL/21/4696/NMA 53 Horseshoe Crescent, non-material amendment to planning permission, garage conversion, additional side roof light, internal alterations, resulting in reduction in number of bedrooms and changes to windows and doors to allow for repositioning of a side window.
Yep.
Again, I've no issue with that, unless anybody else has.
No, no objection.
No, no, that's
Okay.
fine.
Moving on, PL/21/4678/FA 19 Ivins Road, single story rear extension and new roof lights. This again is a revised plan that's been issued hitherto. I've no objection to that one, unless anybody's any comments to make.
No.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on, PL/21/4677/FA 7 Woodside Road, Beaconsfield, Part 2, part single story rear extension, front dormer, changes to doors, windows and roof, and conversion of garage to living space. Again, I've no comments to make on that. That's fine as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Unless anybody's Lorna, you're waving your hand.
Just one comment.
Yep.
It's a large 6-bedroom dwelling with no garage. I was just wondering, do we have any concerns about the parking?
Well, yes, I understand what you're saying. You're quite right. There is a reasonable amount of room actually in the front to park cars. I thought that. The road itself, of course, as you know, is it's off Reynolds and what's his name? Bearing, sorry. So it's relatively, there's not a huge amount that goes down there, but there is a bit of space in the front. I didn't think it, personally, I didn't think it was a particular issue. Unless anybody's got any comment. Yeah, okay. 45 Gregory's Road, front entrance gate, associated piers and walls, additions to piers and railings to existing front boundary wall. No issue with that.
No.
No,
Okay, thank you. PL/21/4641, Ravenhill House, Nebra Gate, single story rear extension incorporating a roof light and alterations to windows and doors at rear end side elevations. Again, no objections to that.
No.
Paul, you've got
I think it's just worth noting that a neighbour commented here about whether there would be a use of a balcony or not. It's not shown in the plans that they intend to do that, but they just wanted to make sure that it didn't at some stage get switched and become usable. So I think that was the only comment that I saw there.
yes,
but
I did see that. I agree, but this is for them to do that. I would have thought that would be subject to a separate application, would it
Yeah.
not? Because this specifically is a single story rear extension. I mean, the roof light isn't an issue as far as I could see. And the alterations to doors, I appreciate the point, but I think if that was going to be the case, then they'd have to make a separate application for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Okay. PL/21/4599 to the Spinney Beaconsfield, certificate of lawfulness for proposed part single story, part 2 story rear and side extensions, and first floor side extensions, and outbuilding and rear garden. Yeah, I mean it's been approved. They want a certificate of lawfulness. I've no comment really, unless anybody else has. Yeah, thank you. Charlbury, sorry, PL/21/4573, Charlbury 99.
Whoa, sorry, Sorry, you
Sorry.
missed one. You
Oh, I
missed
do beg. I'm sorry.
Copperfield, yeah.
Sorry, Paul. I do beg your pardon. Yes. My apologies to everybody. Yeah. Jumping the gun. PL oblique 21, oblique 4577, 9 Copperfields, Beaconsfield. Demolition of existing conservatory, single-story rear and side extension, first floor side extension over existing garage, and changes to window and doors. Now, the interesting thing I found with this was the reference to the the garden. Is it the garden office? I think, was this not the one where there was a garden office described?
No, I think this was the one where they had previously had approval under PL 184693.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
But they hadn't gone ahead with it, and they were now coming to do something slightly different, which seemed to suggest less than they were previously asking for.
Correct.
So
Sorry. Yes, you're absolutely
I
right.
figured that's probably okay.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right, Paul. There was some, right, that's absolutely right. Sorry, I was getting excited about Elwood Road because there were some other issues with that, but you're quite right. It's a smaller, well, appears to be a smaller application. I don't think we've had any letters of objection, have we, as far as I'm aware?
I hadn't seen any.
I couldn't see, looking at the plans, that there was any overlooking, etc. So didn't think that was too much of an issue. Yeah. Okay, is everybody happy with that? Fine. Okay, moving on. PL 21 oblique 4573, Charlbury 9B, Elwood Road, Beaconsfield, single story rear extension, an outbuilding in rear garden. It's quite close to where I live, so I know the area. And in fact, I know the property, as I deliver the various magazines that we tend to do. And it's quite a large plot, actually. In fact, I can't remember now whether this was owned by the chairman of the gas board a long time ago. And he was called Cedric the Pig. I don't know whether you remember that. And it's either next door or it is the property. Anyway, neither here nor there. Single story rear extension. I don't think it's an issue for anybody, as far as I could see. No overlooking. Paul, you've got a.
The outbuilding is a bit vague. What is the outbuilding?
In terms of, is it a conservatory or?
Is it, well, use and size relative to the plot? I'm sorry, I didn't see the plan. Can you bring the plan up, Tracy?
I don't think it said what the use was going to be.
I believe it did, yes.
Was it just a garden building?
Yes, I thought it did. Tracy may be able to help us.
Garden room with a loo and a sink.
Okay, so because it's too far to walk to the house.
Possibly.
Could be.
Hold on, let's see if Tracy can get the plan.
I think, yes, I believe there's a patio on the outside. I think the idea, Paul, is that, you'd have a barbecue and a few drinks. And because you've got a reasonable amount of room, here we are, yeah. Dining conservatory, this is the area, isn't it? Yeah, presume you're referring to, is it? Is that right?
Well, I got the impression from the application wording that it was separate from the house.
I believe.
I think there's another diagram for the
Garden room plans.
Oh, the garden. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes, you may be talking about the garden room.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, let's look at that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We can't get much of an idea on size on that.
Oh, there's a human to scale, presumably.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. If the garden's big enough, yeah, fine.
It is quite a significant size.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's 5 meters wide.
Yeah.
And
Lovely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, be a nice addition.
There is a site plan on the documents. The the last document, Tracy, is the site
Yes.
plan, which shows
Yeah,
where it
let's have a look at that. Yeah. Oh, actually, that's not much. Yeah.
Proposed
Okay.
garden room there to the left.
Yes.
Okay.
I can tell you, having walked down there on when I'm required to, about every 8 weeks, it occupies quite a significant amount of land.
right.
So I don't imagine it's going to, as far as I'm aware, there are quite a number of trees actually in that area, but I
Okay.
don't think they're going to pull any trees down.
Yeah.
It
So
actually,
I see they're saying they have root protection for the trees in the neighborhoods of 9A.
yes, yes,
And presumably also for the white beam sorbus tree that will
yes.
be root protected. And there's
Yeah.
no objection from 26A.
No.
Good. Well, it looks lovely. That's fine then.
Yes, that particular design of house, the majority of the garden area, as you can see, is at the front rather than at the back. I think that's why it's sited where it is. And in fact, it's at the end of a very long drive from Elwood. If you walk it, it's quite a long way. And you could be in the middle of nowhere, to be frank with you, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
As you're about, I should think, 150 yards from the A40.
Right.
There we are. Anyway,
Good.
everybody happy?
Yep.
Good. Yep. Moving on. PL 21/4467, Davenhurst School Station Road. Listed building consent for internal work to reconfigure an existing music room to a caretaker staff flat and external re-roofing of the Lockyer building. No objection to that at all.
No.
Yep.
No.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Move on. PL 21/4335, High Banks, 111 Station Road. Garage conversion, additional side windows and roof light, changes to existing doors and windows and alteration to patio. I was slightly worried about this as it's on Station Road, about the parking. I haven't been able to visit the house because of my current situation, but having looked at it and looked at the plans, I think there's adequate parking for anything and the conversion seems eminently reasonable to me. Unless anybody's got any comments. Yeah. Thank you.
Lovely.
PL /4183, 16 Asherton Road, Beaconsfield, part 2 story, part single story, front, side, rear extension, loft extension, including raising of roof with 2 front and 1 rear dormer, new vehicular access and gravel drive and rear patio. I had a good look at this. To be frank with you, I'm slightly surprised that I assume it's a developer, is not knocking the house down and building another one, because they're doing quite a huge amount. And the house itself, I don't know if you've seen the pictures, it isn't a particularly appealing building. However, that's what they've decided to do. Okay, fair enough. There've been a number of extensions and refurbs in Asherton Road. It can take it, the plots are quite large. And I've looked at the statements with regard to trees and all the other issues. I don't think there's a particular problem. So I haven't got any major objections, unless anybody's got any comments to make on that one.
No.
Thank you. Okay, PL /3896, 7 Seeley's Close, certificate of lawfulness for proposed use, application to establish commencement of building works approved under PL /18/3497 FA. Well, they've got approval, so presumably they can get on with it. I don't see, as the original application's been approved, I don't see an issue unless anybody else got any comments to make. Paul?
I'm presuming that they maybe didn't start within the 3 years, and so they're just asking for a refresh of it.
Yes, I think you may well be right. I think it's probably an administrative scenario here. Yeah, I didn't look at that, but you're probably right. I couldn't see any issue anyway, unless anybody else. No. Okay, thank you. So, moving on, right, I think the rest of the planning are, the original planning relates to trees, which I've had a look at. I was actually, there's quite a significant amount, I think, a number of properties close to me that are having, I'm sure that they are probably reasonable, and I would suggest we leave it to Richard Garnett to review, if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
No cutting down of forest as far as I can see there. Okay, we now move on to the supplementary planning list, which is interesting, I have to say. PL oblique 21, oblique 4558, 24 Mayflower Way, HP 91UE, demolition of existing dwelling and redevelopment of site to provide 2 pairs of semi-detached dwellings, which is a resubmission of PL oblique 21, oblique 2395, oblique FA. Now, there are, as far as I'm aware, 2 letters of objection on this one. And the original letters of objection and the refusal by the council was in relation to the fact that in order to get 4 semis on this plot, the site, they had to be moved forward very much closer to the road compared with the rest of the road, and the substantial size. They're all 4-bedroom properties with obviously bedrooms and the roof, etc. They were well, in fact, the word wasn't mentioned, but it's overdevelopment of the site, really. However, they've resubmitted an application, and certainly the revamp, is a lot better than the previous submission, which in fact was in November, I think. So it wasn't that long ago. Paul, sorry, yes, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, sorry, it was really to, I think what they've tried to do is to push the properties back on the site. Yes. So just getting my tape measure out, or my ruler out, I should say, they seem to be moving the property 1 and 2 back by about 1.2 meters from the pavement. There's little change on 3 and 4. Apart from on 4, they've probably gone back half a meter. I think the objection is coming from the person in Crabtree Close behind, because by moving them back, they're moving them even closer to the properties in Crabtree Close. And so the original refusal, there were 3 reasons. One was protected species, and I think they've now a report on that. The 3rd was Burnham Beaches, and I think they've agreed that they'll do what is required if they have to make a payment there. So it really comes back to the original refusal of 2 prominent in the street scene. The council had rejected our objection, which related to danger on the highway. That was deemed not to be a problem. So I think it's, again, is it too prominent in the street scene? They've tried to do something, but have they now created another problem? So I'm not sure they've done enough, personally, for this one.
Yes, I would agree with you, Paul. I think to put two sets of semis on the plot, I don't know whether anybody's had a chance to look at it. I know it quite well because it's only around the corner from me. There's in terms of trees, there's not much. There's some hedging and what have you there, which obviously they're going to have to pull a lot of it down. It's a bit, as it stands, the property that's been there, the existing property, is nothing to write home about, and it's a bit overgrown. So that's certainly true, which was mentioned in the design and access statement. However, the fact that you've got 4 semis on that plot is quite interesting. And interestingly, when you look at 1, 2, and 3, properties 1 and 2, the garages to 1 and 2 are actually attached to number 2. So in other words, for you to get in and out of your car, you've actually got to walk across the front garden of number 2 to get access to the garage, which is in legal terms quite interesting. I don't quite know how they're going to, an easement of some sort, presumably. And that would lead me to conclude in some ways that I doubt whether the owners of number 1 would actually bother to park their car in the garage anyway. They'd probably just leave it outside. The parking aspect is a cause for concern. If there were 2 cars per property, although highways have not got too excited about it, it's a bit tight. And certainly if you had 2 visitors to numbers 1 and 2, then I think number 3 would struggle a bit to park their car in their garage, unless they had a helicopter, which is possible, I suppose. So of course, Mayflower Way is unrestricted. There aren't yellow lines. I don't believe on that side. I stand corrected. I think on that corner with Crabtree, there are yellow lines on the other side by the shops, but I don't believe there are on that side. But I think the size of the 4 units, and in fact, the original report by the planning officer said that they thought that the gardens were of an adequate size. Well, I don't know. They're pretty small, one has to say, and a significant amount of the area has been used by the properties. I think the fact that they haven't, the dormers face front, so there aren't any dormers at the rear, and even with the semis number 4 to number 3, they're facing the road. So in terms of overlooking, it's not an issue. It's just the fact that both Crabtree Close and Mayflower have concerns about the depth of the plots, depths of the buildings, I beg your pardon, in relation to their own property. They haven't mentioned actually the loss of light, but there may or may not be. There is in fact a footpath on the Mayflower side separating the property from this side. But I think we could quite easily say that it's still, frankly, an overdevelopment of the site. I mean, if it was 2 semis or even 3, a terrace, in other words, I don't know whether you'd have to go at an angle, an L-shaped terrace. That possibly would be okay. I think to put 4 on there with the associated parking, etc., is an overdevelopment of the site. That's my own view. Paul,
I just want to underline the issue of parking here and cars, because
yes.
These are 4-bedroom semis, aren't they?
Yes.
And so, Alexa?
I think they're 3.
They're 3-bedroom semis, okay.
No, I think I believe they're 4. If you look at the design and access, that I forget the name of they're in Uxbridge, the developers, the architects. I think I'm right in saying they're 4.
I'm just looking at one of the plans, and it's 3, but the 3rd bedroom is up in the eaves, up in the loft. But maybe there could be 2 different types of.
I think there are. You're right.
Because I was thinking with 4 lots of 3, that's 12 bedrooms. You need a lot of parking for 12 bedrooms.
You do indeed. But highways have said they're satisfied. But I think, quite frankly, the issues with regard to garaging, you all have to be in unison, put your cars in the garage to allow everybody to go in. If you leave your car outside, as most people do, then there is an issue about your neighbour being able to get their car in the garage, so they leave their car out. They then have friends round, and before you know where you are, everything's parked on the road. So Paul's comment is relevant. Yeah.
And indeed, I've just noticed they've lost one of the parking spaces for number 2. Previously, they had 1 garage and 2 parking spaces for 2, and the one at the front they've removed. So again, they've gone down from 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spaces to 9 spaces. So yeah, I think it's overdevelopment.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'd object. Yeah. Is everybody happy with that?
I agree.
Thank you. Okay. PL Oblique 21 Oblique 3795, 34 Walkwood Rise, remodeling of dwelling, part single, part 2-story, front, rear and side extensions, front and rear dormers, rear balcony, changes to windows and doors and rear patio. Here
Graham,
again, sorry.
can I just interject here? I asked Alexa to put this one on. We have actually had this discussion about this one. It was discussed in the November meeting. Unfortunately, I missed the December meeting when the minutes were approved, and on those minutes we said we were going to object. When I look at it, there is no objection from us on the planning portal. They've yet to make the decision on it, but I was just wanted to note that somewhere over the period we seem to have missed, or at least it's not showing on the planning portal, our objection that we discussed in the November meeting, the November 4th meeting, where we said we were going to object on the site size and the first floor terrace, and there was no garage, so we were a bit worried about parking and things like that. I don't know what's happened, so it was really just we should probably get that comment in because it doesn't seem to be there.
Yes, indeed. Sorry, yes, I did notice that we hadn't. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Perhaps we could follow. Could we follow that up, Tracy, as to why our note with regard to our objection hasn't got put onto the portal? I presume it was sent in. Tracy, there? No, I can't see it.
Yeah, we did. There were some. I don't know if that was when there were those technical issues with Bucks.
Yeah, there's been quite a few technical issues.
Down like a fiddler's elbow for a few weeks, so it might be worth double checking.
Yes,
there were things that went in as personal comments from Tracy that should have gone in as and that happened to a lot. It wasn't her fault.
That still happens. They have to change them to parish.
Oh, okay.
Right.
They take 24 hours.
And I just propose we resubmit the objection.
I'll do that first thing.
Let's resubmit that. I mean, there was I think there's either 2 or 3 letters of objection on that. Three, yeah. And one of the comments was about the different levels between the various properties, which is actually quite relevant because this is a highish property in relation to the neighbours. And I do agree with the size of the on the second floor. The terrace is a bit of an issue. One objection refers to them possibly having a party, but I suspect they may do, I don't know, but it's off their bedroom, so one would have thought possibly they may not think that was a sensible thing to do, I don't know. But to be frank with you, I don't think it's personally don't think it's a terribly well thought out design. And in terms of the effect on the neighbours, yes, it is significant. So I think we should object. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, now moving on to CM Oblique 0057, Oblique 21, Waspers Wood. My word, this has been going on for some years.
20 years.
Well, indeed, Paul. Yes. Yes, you can tell by our hairline, etc. It has been going on rather a long time. Now, this, if we allow this, as it says, no later than December 27. Now, assuming that Paul and I last that long, sorry, Paul, I'm not criticism, but you know what I mean.
That's all right.
We last that long. Are they going to go into 2032? Hang on a minute. You know what's going on here. Now, sorry, Paul, yes.
Well, I think what's going on here is that it's not full.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So they presumably had anticipated that it would be full by the extent of the previous planning permission for it, and they've now found out that it isn't full. So why not fill it? And they estimate now that they'll need another 2 years to fill it. I mean, to be honest, I can't see an objection to this, because we've lived with it for 25, more than 20 years, Graham, because it was operating when I moved to Beaconsfield 30 years ago. So, it's been there, and, there's no reason. It's out of the way. It's well managed, largely in terms of odor coming off it. Sometimes you can smell it, but when you do smell it and report it, they fix it pretty quickly. So an extra 2 years to fill it up, I think seems to be a reasonable suggestion for them, and it won't change anything as far as we're concerned. It's so far away, and it's separate from anyone. The only people that could object possibly would be the hotel, I suppose, because they're
well, yes, indeed, that's an interesting point, because, as you probably know, the Plaza bought that. Effectively, as I understand it, we didn't that for the Plaza, but as I understand it from people I've spoken to, that there was an expectation of a golf course within a reasonable time scale.
On Ropsey's Wood site.
Yeah. Around the hotel. Because I can remember, I don't know, I've been to a number of Christmas do's there, Paul, various. None of my wheels have been stolen, but I can well remember a very well-known person who had his chauffeur-driven BMW and gave his speech, and I don't know what his chauffeur was doing, but anyway, and when they got out, they found that the car was up on bricks and all 4 alloys had been nicked.
Right.
Now, as you know, it's pretty close to Mossby's Wood. And the assumption is that and they're not the only people. I know, I'm sure the Plaza will be absolutely delighted when this is resolved. My suggestion, I understand the point that they're making, that because Bucks is so successful at reducing the amount of waste, and they have been very successful. I spend quite a lot of my time down in Portsmouth, and Portsmouth Council are absolutely no reflection whatsoever upon Bucks. They have no food waste. They won't remove bottle waste or anything of that sort. Their recycling is pathetic. And as a result, they have a huge waste tip, Bex North, quite close to where I have a little property down there, Port Solent, which actually they are now covering over. But they were very similar to this. They were due to do this about 12 years ago. It was going to be flat, but now it's quite large. In fact, I suspect you can see it from quite high up. But anyway, my suggestion would be, okay, we can allow this to 2027, but we need some really good excuses for it to go on very much longer, because this has been extended now. I mean, the original application, I think, was in 2012. And, here we are. And they're now asking for it to go to 2027 for understandable reasons. But I suspect that the way things are going with regard to waste, there'll be even less waste going in. And as the worst site with regard to smells, etc., of course, is Broad Lane. And that's still an issue, isn't it? Even now. But these sites need to be have some sort of time limit on them, rather than going on and on and on. So my suggestion is that we've no objection, but we really feel that the December 27 should be the last chance saloon, i.e. that they can't extend it any further. Because, we are in 2022, they got 5 years. The filling the hole isn't going to get any easier, probably more difficult, I suspect. But I'm sure they'll be able to find people to put stuff in there. And if it's covered over, etc., it'd be a much better environment for all of us than where it is at the moment. I don't know, have anybody been to have a look at it? some years ago, since I went with Alan Walters actually, when I first joined the council in about 2008, I think. It's a big site. And there's a huge amount of natural gas coming off it, which they used to, I don't know whether they still do, put into the network. Yeah. It's not something really which in the really long term that any of us want for our grandchildren, would be my,
But by the time our grandchildren play golf, maybe there will be a golf course there.
Well, indeed. No, you may well be right, Paul. No, you're absolutely right. Yes, and they may extend it over the M40 because we won't need that. Who knows? Anyway, that would be my. As I say, it's been. This is about the third time I think it's been extended, all for understandable reasons. But I think we need to say, well, look, enough's enough, because the original was 2012 when. They're now talking about 27, as you rightly say. It's a long time. Yeah. Okay.
Well, planning permission is planning permission, and they're quite within their rights to reapply in 2027. And
absolutely.
If any of us are still there, I suppose it'll be up to us to remember again, won't it?
Indeed. Well, what is interesting when you read their review, of course, they're very emphatic about how little property, which is true, there is within their surroundings. They don't mention the Plaza Hotel actually, but they minimise, if you like, the effect on the area. But as things progress, and hopefully we have more greenbelt released, I think we'll find, when we get to 2027, 2030, that the issues with regard to greenbelt are even more sacrosanct than they are at the moment. So anyway, there we are. As you rightly say, the reason they don't want to shut it off is they've got a big hole, they want to fill it. Okay, fair enough. They want to make some money like everybody else in life. But I think we need to put a ceiling on it.
Yeah, I think there's another aspect of wanting to fill it, though. They're wanting to fill it because if they don't fill it and we close it down, there's a big hole.
Yes, indeed, you're absolutely right, Paul. But there have been other examples actually further up in Buckinghamshire, and I'm trying to remember where, in fact, they've created lakes. That's quite near, so you can make quite an attractive nature reserve with reeds and Lord knows what.
Okay.
So there's always something you can do. But as it is, it's a bit of an eyesore, to be frank. And you've got this the sales office, you've got the Weybridge and all the rest of it up there at the moment, and the other chappies. I'm not suggesting that there is. I don't know. I mean,
they're not really associated.
What I was talking about was some years ago, many years ago.
Okay.
Before, when it was. Anyway, there we are.
Right.
So that would just be my suggestion. We understand the scenario, but we would suggest that 2027, if possible, is set to be the last time that it can be extended to, rather than going into the 2030s.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Just moving on to the last one, PL 21 Oblique 4412 Woodlands 46 Woodside Avenue. You may have seen the email which Paul kindly circulated of this the subterranean hole, which is unfortunately imploded. This was a 46 Woodside Avenue new build, property pulled down, and then subsequently they decided to create a garden office. Absolutely fine. Thought it was within permitted development, and certainly looking at the original plans, that seemed to be the case. And then for whatever reason, they decided to build what they themselves have described as a subterranean hole for storage. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the storage is for, but if you look at the size of the hole, it is very significant. If you're into buses, you could probably put 3 buses into it. We're talking about quite a big hole. It's the plot itself is quite long, but it's not that wide. and it's a very significant part of the plot. And why on earth they didn't think that they needed planning approval, I don't know. But anyway, somebody obviously thought that they did. I assume it was their architects, got the council chaps down apparently, and they said, yes, you need to apply. Anyway, they have applied. We've seen the hole. We were quite amazed. And Paul, I think you went to have a look at it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I had a look at it before the hole collapsed.
Yeah.
They basically have dug pretty much to the boundary with, I guess, number 48A, I think it is. And that's the side that's collapsed. It also backs onto Eggham's Wood Road, a house there, but it's the side against on Woodside Avenue that it has collapsed. Interestingly, the storage hole does not run underneath the proposed garden room. It runs at a 90-degree angle to it, so it would have turf and garden on top of it. So it's very strange. There is no mention of why they need it. The original house has a basement and was approved to have a basement with storage in it. So it just seems a complete overdevelopment of the site with no real justification for why they're doing it. Of course, because they've dug the hole without thinking about the trees, the neighboring trees and things like that, they may already have caused damage there. We were worried about subsidence, and sure enough, that's exactly what's happened. There was no construction methodology shown, and clearly what they've done was inadequate. They'd put up some steel barriers with some steel posts put in, and it's all just collapsed.
So this is retrospective application.
Yeah, they started digging the hole around about mid-October, and they applied for planning permission in mid-November, roughly. And sometime over the Christmas holiday, it's collapsed. I don't know if they've done anything since it's collapsed, whether they've shored it back up again or not. I haven't seen anything related to that. But it's a mess, an absolute mess. And why they thought they could get away with it, and with all the things that we would normally discuss and relate to the trees and water flow and everything else, to my mind, they've tried to get around it by starting the hole and then hoping they can get permission retrospectively for it. And I just think that's completely unacceptable. And I think we need to be sending a very strong message that this is not the way to do it.
Absolutely. Councillor Walters, who is concerned with that area, has in fact called for this to be called in.
Yes, if Eggham's Wood Road backs onto the Penn.
Yes. And that area, in fact, has had in the past flood issues, significant flood issues, and subsidence as well. So it's not at all surprising. It's just as well, frankly, that they decided to do this right at the bottom of their garden and at the bottom of Eggham's Wood Road, because had it been any nearer roads or services, then we may have all sorts of issues of falling sewers and goodness knows what.
The issue is that the plot in 46 Woodside runs from the road towards the property on Eggham's Wood Road, which again slightly goes down, and right in that area is the bottom. Yeah.
Yes, it's this dip. You're right.
And
You're right.
Fear that it will flood the gardens in Eggham's Wood Road.
Yes. I mean, there has been no survey carried out by, or it doesn't appear to be, by anybody. There's no tree survey. There's no ecological survey. There is no survey with regard to these excavation works. And as you rightly say, Paul, the garden room which they were proposing to build looks fine, and in fact, the roof of the garden room has got grass. It's sort of very much in keeping with the garden. I mean, they were trying to
blend,
it's a bit like the Battle of Britain bunker. You know, you can see the top, but rather than put tons of concrete and shoring up, they've literally dug the hole, and apart from a few bits of iron, that's been left. I staggered, frankly, at what they've done, either without advice or with advice that they've ignored. It's difficult to know which. But as far as they're concerned, the reason for digging this huge hole is for storage. Well, I don't know, as a private person, what they're storing. It must be something other than storage. Anyway, it's all gone wrong.
Deirdre, you're on mute. You're on mute. Let's try and unmute you. Here we go.
Right.
There you go.
Sorry, yes, I was just wondering, can they not be compelled to say what they're going to put in it? Because if they're going to grass it over, it sounds as though they're just burying something or an awful lot of something. It might be a dangerous chemical or something they want to get rid of, and which would then leach into the ground, into other people's properties.
Well, the access to this hole, if you look at the plans, if you can believe it, actually, if you look at the plans, the access seems to be a ladder. It's a hole. The hole itself, the access to the hole is through this garden room. So it is very strange.
Very sinister.
Well, indeed, yes.
Putting people in it.
Well, I don't know. But it's of such a size. I mean, Paul's seen it. I haven't, but I've seen the photos from the resident of Vegganswood Road, and it is huge.
It is hard to tell without actually seeing it yourself. The pictures don't do justice to how large the hole actually is.
And do they state that they intend to cover it, or is it just a hole?
No, it is covered. If you can, it's an underground excavation. That's why it's called. They've said it's a subterranean hole. So
it's not open to the air. They've dug through the ground.
Correct.
Without shoring and stuff.
Correct.
Oh dear.
Yes, you could say that, Paul. I'm very glad it's not at the end of my garden. I have to say.
Okay.
I'm somewhat staggered, frankly. Why? And they must have used mechanical excavators. They must have had some advice from somebody, and to simply dig. We're talking. I don't know how many lorries, but we're talking tens, probably, of lorry loads of soil that have been excavated. And because the house has been knocked down, they come straight through the site onto the road. Yeah, go with me. They pulled the house down, obviously with the intention of building this prior, presumably, to making the application to build the house.
Burying something.
Could it be that they're building a space for the foundations or basement of a new property?
No,
it's too far away. Right at the bottom of the plot. If you look at the plan, it's right at the bottom of the plot. If
Tracy, if you've got that site plan, it's a long way away.
Oh, yeah, no,
Okay.
I was just putting up the photos.
But if we're going to object, we have to give a reason. What is the reason that we're going to object, other than it's retrospective?
Overdeveloped.
Sorry, I have actually already drafted a letter because this came up before Christmas, and there was an issue date, I think, something of December, when we had to get something in. So I did draft a letter, and I did discuss it with Paul prior, which is on, actually, if you want to see it, it is already there.
It's already lodged with the
That's already gone in.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I was so concerned when sorry, Paul.
Under your name, Graham.
It's under my name, but as chair of the council on behalf of.
It's gone in as a parish.
Right. It's the parish's submission.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And I apologise for not contacting everybody, but I had not a huge amount of time to do it. I did speak to Paul.
In which case, our work is done then, isn't it?
Indeed. But I wanted to make you aware of what was going on. And in fact, if you look at the letter, what I said in terms of the subsidence and all the rest of it has now occurred.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, I think Tracy, you've had Tracy's contacted the case officer, have you not, this afternoon?
Yes, I contacted the case officer today, Matthew. Although it's been called in, the determination date isn't till the 24th of January. And regards to the subsidence, the neighbours have to take it as a civil case at the moment because they've chanced their arm and started digging the hole without planning permission.
Yes,
and the health and safety executive will get involved as well if needs be, if there's a health and safety issue, that needs to be reported as well.
Yes, as I understand it, the neighbours are somewhat reticent to make a complaint because they recognise that these Mr. and Mrs. Carpenter moved in. They don't want to upset them, and so therefore, as it's not a massive build overlooking, etc., to their property, although I think they're pretty upset, as I understand it, with what subsequently happened, whether or not they can be persuaded or suggested to them that they make a formal complaint, I don't know. I don't know whether you want to, Paul. Oh, you've spoken to Sarah Marsden, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've not spoken to them since the collapse, mainly because I've been self-isolating at the minute. But I could certainly do that. I mean, I think it's very difficult to suggest to somebody that their only way out is to take a civil action with all of the costs involved.
No.
I would like to think that the Bucks Council should, in my opinion, be making some suggestions as to what should be done now to make the site safe. Because who knows how much further, if we get another wet spell, how much further subsidence and deterioration further down the street and into other people's properties might then occur, including collapsing trees. Now, the trees are unlikely to hit houses, but they could. I mean, it's difficult standing there to know how far these things could topple, but they could certainly do quite a bit of damage. So I would suggest that actually Bucks Council needs to get out there and somebody needs to decide what they have to do now to rectify the problem.
I agree.
I'm assuming that if the planning people have decided that it needs planning permission, hence this planning application, then it's also subject to building regs as well. And if it's subject to building regs, despite the fact that they haven't got planning permission, the building regs people can intervene and make it a council problem. Not a council problem, but use the power of the law to enforce.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say we can contact the building control enforcement and ask them to.
Yeah, I think that's quite cool.
That's a good idea.
Yes, I agree. I mean, certainly the applications that we have looked at in the past, and there have been two in Berks Road and one in Westfield Road. In every case, there was a structural engineer's report and a report by the guys actually digging the holes. And they've been shored up with very significant piles. And the Westfield Road site, which I popped round to have a look at, was huge. And they made a pretty, well, I mean, it was a similar weather conditions because it was this time of year that was being dealt with. The reason all this has happened is effectively the shoring up. I mean, it's a bit like a sandcastle, frankly. I mean, it's just hopeless.
Yeah.
And either they've not had any advice or they shouldn't have done it in the first place. But anyway, I agree with you. So what course of action, Alexa, can we take to resolve this?
I think if Tracy contacts building control tomorrow, I suspect we will find that they're already aware of it, yes, given the neighbours' issues at the moment. The fact that the planning officer said it's a civil issue, I do understand that, because that will be akin to the party wall agreement. So if you sort of dig within 3 meters of a neighbour's property and it has potential to cause subsidence, it is something that you should have agreed with your neighbour before you started digging. And if you're going to construct a subterranean room, even if it didn't require planning, you should have done a building notice. So you have to give them 24 hours notice. I mean, the first inspection any building inspector will do is when you dig footings. That's the first thing they want to see. So,
Yes.
so building control have to get involved. So I think if Tracy gives building control a call, references the planning application and the site address just to check that they are aware. And also I thought was very interesting Paul's mention of the trees, whether to say to building control or whether to go to Richard Garnett direct to say it might be worth having a look to see if any of the trees are at risk in that immediate area, because this work has already been started.
Well, it's interesting if you, sorry, I apologize.
What I was going to say is, from what I remember,
Yep.
to the right of the picture, where you see on the right-hand side of the picture, you see the subsidence. Back right of that, I seem to remember there was a very large tree. So it is in very close proximity to it.
Which may have a TPO on it.
Yeah, I can't.
I believe it does,
I don't
yes.
know. Yeah.
Richard would tell us that that's
Yes.
a planning enforcement issue.
Of course.
But
If you look at if you if you look at my letter, which I wrote last week, I referred to Richard Garnett's comments because he said in respect of the application to pull down the existing and put up a new build, he did say there was no tree report, which he was in contravention of whatever the statutory authority was, and he required it. So I no doubt it's part of the condition for the approval. And obviously this issue, what we possibly could do is to send an email or let Richard Garnett know that this is what's happened, because he may wish to pop down and have a look. What I'm concerned, as I understand it, I know one or two individuals in that area, and they're all very concerned that they don't want. What's happened there? Have you all gone? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So, okay. Yeah. Yes. Hello. We got the letter from
Richard.
Yeah. Great, Tracy. Yes. Here we are. Yeah. So you can see, yes, no tree information has been submitted as part of this application. So,
so there are TPOs.
Oh, yes, indeed. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So he said condition 8 is on planning application is for an arboricultural method statement to be submitted and approved by the council. This information has not been submitted, and these proposals have an implication on where site materials were shown to be stored for application P, blah, 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 which I've referred to in my letter to it, that they're already in for their original application, let alone this garden room, etc. So it might be worthwhile just letting him know what subsequently happened, because perhaps the tree has fallen. I don't know what's happened to the tree. Anyway,
so are we going to let your letter that you've already sent and have listed stand, or do we want to repeat it now that we've actually had a meeting to decide?
Whatever you wish. My letter's come up, as you can see. It's really just reiterated what we've already said. I think perhaps what we now, obviously, when I wrote that letter, the subsidence and the infill of the hole hadn't occurred. So, and I did ask Tracy, which she has done, to submit the photos and the letter from a report on the letter from the resident in Egonswood Road, which I believe you've done, Tracy.
I've done that directly, yeah.
Yes, and that's why we've had the response from Matthew McCain.
Right. Okay.
I think what we perhaps need to say that obviously we're concerned, and as Alexa said, let's get building control involved. Yeah. So there we can't expect the neighbours to issue, I don't think so, a civil summons, because I suspect that they don't want to upset their neighbour, and the costs will put them off. So
You don't want to be put in the hole.
no, indeed.
Alison had her hand up,
Bit
Graham.
nervous.
Sorry, Lex, I didn't get that. What did you say?
Alison had her hand up, but I don't think you could
I
see
beg
when
your
the
pardon.
screen sharing.
Yes. Hi.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, I think it's absolutely essential that we let the planning officer know about the subsidence, because that was, I don't think, mentioned in your original letter.
No, it wasn't. No.
Because it may possibly be that the planning officer will make a decision on this, and I think we want it sooner rather than later, and I think that's what we want to urge him to do, because I think it's a terrible situation that the neighbours are in, and I think the planning officer should be made fully aware of the damage that's been caused and be urged to make a decision.
I did speak to him earlier.
Right, rather than wait for it to, to run its course. Really, I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, fine. Okay. He being a civil servant, I think, has devolved himself in respect of suggesting to the neighbours they do a civil, but that's not, as you rightly say. Let's put him on the spot. But I think Alexa's point about the building control possibly is a very good argument, because building control should be involved, should they not, Alexa?
They will, simply from a matter of safety. They need to. They certainly need to know about it. I would hope that they already do, but from a matter of safety, they would go out straight away.
Right. Okay. Paul, sorry.
Well, so to the process then, can I suggest that the letter that you've already sent was maybe a little premature, in that you sent it on behalf of the council, but we hadn't met to discuss it. So a slight slap on the wrist for doing that, because really you're not supposed to do that, Graham. I don't think.
Okay.
But having said that, thank you for doing that, because you summarised the issue very, very well, and it brought it to the attention of the county, the unitary authority people. So that's good. So as far as going, can I suggest then that we take the text in Graham's original letter, add the issue of the subsidence and the subsidence rather, and any other issues that we've discussed this evening, particularly the TPO trees that we suspect are damaged, and resubmit it now that we've had the meeting and decided.
Indeed.
Yeah?
In my defence, Paul, this, I think it was on the 29th or the 30th, I stand corrected. I did discuss it with Paul. I also had
not the committee, Graham.
No. I had COVID at the time as well, so I may be slightly addled.
Okay.
But to be fair, Sarah, who brought this to my attention, the resident, said that we had, I think, we either had that day or the next day.
It was the 23rd of December. We had that day to submit some.
Right, sorry,
I
do apologise. I missed the dates, but we didn't have very long. And I knew, because of everybody's, Christmas activities, I'd have no hope of getting agreement.
So my complaint was a little tongue in cheek. Okay?
Indeed, I understand.
Just a slight reminder that there are other councillors.
Yes. It is very rare for me to do this, I have to say. Probably the last time, but there we are. So I do agree. Shall we? Would I suggest we copy in Richard Garnett? We copy in the building controls, so that everybody knows what's going on, and then perhaps we could report back to. Is Sarah? 7 Egonswood Road. Does that come within our jurisdiction? I'm not.
No, that's in.
No, I thought it didn't. Yeah.
That's why Councillor Waters has called it in.
Yeah,
because
that's what I thought.
His resident. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we perhaps we ought to copy him into what we're saying, so that he's a pretty decent chap, actually, Jonathan. So I'm sure he'd be quite happy with what we've said. But it would be common decency, if you like, to do that. Okay. Thank you. Has anybody else got anything more to say? Yeah, great. Well, I think we've come to the end of the plans. I don't believe we have any other matters to discuss. Paul.
One planning update,
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, yes, the planning update. Sorry, yes, indeed. We
which
have a
was
planning.
one that you had objected to at 121 Hotspur Top Lane, and I think there was
Correct.
discussion about calling it in, but it has been withdrawn and the file has
Yes.
been closed. I suspect it will come back again.
Yeah.
I think it will do. Yes, yes, I'm pretty sure it will. But anyway, it's interesting to see that they've taken note.
Yeah,
Cool.
which is
Sorry.
the third. I mean, this application, I think it's the third iteration, and it's the third time they've withdrawn it. And I
Yes.
think it's actually doing. If I lived it as a neighbour, I would be thoroughly fed up with having to deal with this constant, almost harassment. I mean, it's getting to that extent of submitting, withdrawing, submitting, withdrawing, submitting, withdrawing. And I think it's putting untold pressure on the residents who live next door. And I, for one, would have liked it to have gone forward so that they would have, hopefully it would have been objected to. I think it would have been refused. And yet they'll withdraw and they'll bring something else back. And I think it's unreasonable. And I think they should hear this message that that's not the way that we think that these things should be done here. I think it's terrible, but anyway, we shall see. There was a question about, which I think because it had been called in, that we're all right for it no longer to be called in by us, Alexa. So that's all been dealt with.
The planning officer had written to us, something had happened on the application, and he'd written to us to say, would we withdraw the call in? I wasn't sure who had called it in actually. So that's when I went to check to see who the call in was from, only to discover that I think it was almost immediately or the day after he'd written to us.
Day after.
It was the day after they withdrew it, and you will find that a developer will often do this. They would, because it is much better for the developer to withdraw the application than to have one refused.
Okay, so it's
because
no
it also
longer,
means on timing he can apply again more quickly, I think.
Yeah, but it means it's not going to clog up the South Bucks Area Planning Committee. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. I had one other issue, which was, if I may, which just related to that enforcement notice on Pie Bush Lane. Is that something that we need to? You sent around, Alexa, an enforcement notice that's come from Bucks Council about Pie Bush Lane. I don't presume we have any action on that.
No, hold on. Remind me. I think I just sent it for your information.
I just wanted to check that you weren't asking us to do anything on that.
No.
Yeah, that's in respect of the two buildings, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes, I was just letting you know that they were enforcing.
Okay, that's fine.
Indeed, they've taken rather a long time to do that, but anyway, for whatever reason, not within our jurisdiction as such. I was going to say, Paul, just 24 Mayflower Way, the previous application, this is the 4 semis, they have actually gone to appeal on that, amazingly, and for whatever reason, are now submitted this revised application. So presumably they think that their appeal won't be successful. Anyway, who knows?
And each way bet.
Yeah.
Well, indeed, Paul. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can someone tell me what the current official status is about the filling in of the gap on the road to nowhere to Pie Bush Roundabout? What do we know has been committed by Inland Homes?
I believe they've committed to a month of the end date of that project. Is it February, March this year? I'd have to look up the paperwork, but they have committed to an end date. But it's not a day.
An end date to open. An end date to have the road finished.
Because I think they've started the work.
Oh, have they? All right, good. Okay.
and they were just waiting for some paperwork to go through or something like that. But they were committing to Q1 for it to be finished.
Good. Okay, that's excellent. Thank you.
Quite interesting the point that you made, whether that will be open, finished and open.
Yes.
I don't recall that wording.
Okay. Finished and handed over to the county, right? To the unitary to operate on. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll
Yes,
see.
Those are different things.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, any other comments or points to make? Okay, thank you very much indeed for your participation.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
And we'll meet again in February,
Excellent.
if not before.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year. Sorry, yes, Happy New Year.
Year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Bye. Bye.